guys, I'm Sarah. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking to you about some books I've read recently. I normally do this when I have like 8 or so at a time. This kind of got away from me. I have more than 8 here, but some of them I don't really have much to say, so we're just going to jump right into it. And one of those books is sadly a DNF. I actually just DNF'd it yesterday, and that is Bravely by Maggie Stiefvater. Sorry about the glare. There's nothing inherently bad with this book. I did not give it a rating on Goodreads. I just marked it as a DNF. This is a sequel. It's actually a new release. It released last month, I think. This is a sequel to the Disney Pixar movie Brave with Princess Merida, and we're just following her and her family like several years later after the end of the movie. And there's nothing wrong with this book. It's well written. It's pretty much fine. I don't know how far I got in, like 20 or 30% in or something like that, but just wasn't really holding my attention that much. I would find myself skimming ahead or just kind of skimming it, and I really didn't want to do that. And there were other books I want to read more than this one. It could have just been the mood I was in. It could have been anything, or it's just because Maggie Stiefvater has a certain way of writing that sometimes it feels very slow, but I didn't feel like it was slow. I don't know. I just didn't really care. And yeah, that's kind of a problem. So I just went ahead and DNF'd it. But I think lots of people would like this, especially if you like the movie Brave. But, which I do like the movie. It's not my favorite, but I do like it. But yeah, I don't know. I just didn't care for it, so I went ahead and DNF'd it. So, the next ones, I'm just going to just do it by lowest rating to highest rating, rather than in the order I read them, like I normally do, if that makes sense. So the next few I read were, well, let's go over this one first, was a manga series that's called Giant Spider and Me. It's a 3-volume series. It sounds really weird. It's a post-apocalyptic tale. It's kind of a dystopian world where, I don't know why, Japan's underwater or something like that. The dystopian element is very vague and in the background, and like I'm not even sure why it's there. But yeah, basically this girl's living alone and she comes across this giant spider creature that she names Asa, and they both really like food, so she makes food for them, and it's basically just kind of like a really cozy slice of life type story. I gave both of these 3 stars. I originally gave them 4, but then after thinking about it for a while, I changed it to 3. Actually, I need to change it on Goodreads. I don't think I've done that yet. But anyways, yeah, it was just, there were kind of like recipes woven into the story. I only read 2 of the volumes. It's a 3-volume series, but my library didn't have the second one. So I only read volumes 1 and 3. So I kind of missed part of the story. But I don't think I missed too much, aside from one character's name, which was never mentioned in the 3rd one, so he's just forever known to me as cafe owner. But I don't know. It was nice. It was kind of like a cozy read, but there were these recipes that they kind of incorporated into the story, and I don't know, I thought it bogged the story down a little bit. It kind of was like, oh, we're stopping, we're doing a recipe, we're moving on, and I don't know, it just didn't really work for me. It worked for the story as a whole, like it didn't slow the story pacing down or anything, but I felt it was a little weird and out of place, so there is that. Not my favorite, but it was super cute anyways. Yeah, I really have nothing else to say about that one. Yeah, and the next 3-star book I have is The Silent Songbird by Melanie Dickerson. This is a reread for me. I read it once before when I got it, I think back in 2017 or something like that. And I decided to reread it because every year or so, I kind of go through my book collection that I own, and I purge books that necessarily don't fit me anymore or I don't like, and this was one of the books I had set aside to reread because I wasn't sure about it, and I'm not going to be keeping it. This is a Christian historical romance. It's a retelling of The Little Mermaid set in, I forget, it's in England during 1384 in England. So the 1300s. So it's like a medieval-esque story, and we follow Evangeline, who basically runs away, and because she is told, she's like the king's ward, and she's told she has to marry this really old guy, but she finds him creepy, and he's kind of like shady in certain ways, and so she runs away, and she goes to live in Glenval, of this peasant village, and she falls in love with the son of the lord there, and it's their story. But I don't know, I just found it kind of boring. I may be a little bit older than the target audience of this series now, but I have found that Melanie Dickerson's books, at least for me, have kind of, after The Golden Braid, which was the book before this one, they've kind of gone downhill in quality of like characters and storylines and stuff. They just kind of all sound the same. And I don't know, I found the dialogue in this was a little stilted at times. It was a little weird. It was kind of boring. I read the whole thing anyways, but I don't know, I wouldn't read it again. But I think if you have a younger reader, or someone who just likes, or if you're someone who just likes light romance reads, I think you would still like this. It's written well, but sometimes certain things that they said, or descriptions or something, it just felt off to me. So yeah, I'm going to be unhauling this book, sadly, because I do like the cover. And Melanie Dickerson used to be a favorite author of mine, but sadly not anymore, because of just the way the books have been kind of, for me, going downhill. And it's really sad, because I used to really, really like her books. But anything from like her first book, which is The Healer's Apprentice, to The Golden Braid, I would recommend reading those. I haven't read some of them in a while, but from what I remember, they were really good. The ones after it are kind of iffy, in my opinion. So, yeah. So, 3 stars. Won't be reading this again. And I will be unhauling that book. So, let's see. Okay, so the next ones are all 4 stars. And this one's another reread. It is Speak by Laurie Halse Anderson? Laurie Halse Anderson. I think that's, maybe it's Laurie, not Laurie. Who would name their kid Laurie? Anyways, this is a contemporary. It's very hard-hitting. I will put, there are trigger warnings for this book. Especially for me. This is a reread. I read it once before. There are triggers for sexual assault, which is basically teenage rape, and depression in this book. So if you're sensitive to either of those things, I would be careful with this one, because literally, we're basically just following this girl who had this thing with the sexual assault when she was 13 or something like that, and she's just going through, not admitting it in the very beginning. You don't know what's going on, and then as you go through the story, she reveals more to herself and to you as the reader, and it's basically just her daily life in high school and just coming back to herself. But it is very triggering. I have depression, so I ended up, when I was rereading this, having depression for like 2 days, because I forgot this was triggering in that way. Because I believe when I first read it, I had the same problem, because the author goes so deep into, Melinda is the main character, and she goes so deep into her head, and she is depressed by this event, obviously, and just hiding away and stuff. It's so deep that you are literally her, and you're literally feeling what she's feeling, and which is why by the end of the book, you could almost like get out of depression with her, because literally she like goes on an uphill slide. She goes uphill, and she finds basically light and hope again, and it's a beautiful story. It's very hard to read at times, but it's also very powerful, but I would not recommend it to everyone just because of that. And if you're wondering about the scene, where that might be, because it is kind of shown, it's not really shown, it's glossed over, because Melinda doesn't want to remember herself. But there are no chapters in this book. See how they're like in sections, but it's under the section A Night to Remember, and in my copy of the book, the scene that it happens is pages 135 and 136. I don't know if it's the same in every copy, but it is under that section of A Night to Remember. If you want to look for other like content issues and stuff and other warnings that I might have found in the book, I do have a Goodreads review, which has content warnings and stuff on my Goodreads page, so you can look it up there, and I do have all that on there. So, yes, 4 stars. I don't necessarily highly recommend it, but if you can handle topics like that and not be triggered or end up with depression, I would recommend considering checking it out, because it is a very powerful story. And if you are not a person who has been triggered in that way, it is eye-opening to how someone with depression and struggling with from sexual assault it kind of might feel. So it might give you some empathy in that if you haven't gone through anything like that yourself, either of those things. It might help you understand more. So yes, I did enjoy that one. I will be keeping that one, because that was part of one of those, I'm going through the books and I'm like, do I want to keep this or not? So yeah. On a much lighter note, I did also finish this book that I started. I started this book as an ebook in April. I am just now finishing it in June, and it's not the book's fault. I started it in April. I had way too much to do and got overloaded and stressed out, so I quit the book. And then I found out my library had the e-copy, or I mean the physical copy, not the e-copy. And if you've been around here, you know I don't do ebooks very well. So I was like, oh cool, I'll just get it as a physical copy. And I did, and that is Princess of Shadows. Sorry about that, I'm trying to cover up the library sticking. By A.G. Marshall. This is a fairy tale retelling, it's a fantasy fairy tale retelling of The Princess and the Pea, and with kind of Sleeping Beauty elements, so I consider it like a mashup of both. And I gave this 4 stars. It's really good. You're like, oh, if it's really good, why do I have nothing to say? I think it was very interesting, very well done. I liked how the 2 fairy tales were combined. I did feel the romantic relationship between our main character, there's Lena and Alric, I believe is how you say his name. It felt a little, it's like it worked, but I don't know, to me it felt a little bland. If you know what I mean, there was no like extra spark or anything. Literally, they do fall in love in like 3 or 4 days, maybe 5. So that could have something to do with it, but I don't know. I guess I was kind of just looking for a little extra spark, and it wasn't there. I still think they're really good characters. They had really good development and stuff. I have found with certain fairy tale retellings, a lot of the times they're very more in the almost light and fluffy area. So sometimes like one character will get like the heroine, she'll get more development than the hero, and I really liked in this one, it kind of went a little deeper. You can feel there's like some extra stuff going on with like the goblin that gets loose, and there's more going on in the background that I think is going to be explored more in the series. This is the first book of a series. It's the Fairy Tale Adventures series. So yeah, this is the first book in that series, and I think it's a good start, and it's definitely their deeper fairy tales, so to speak, fairy tale retellings than most, and yeah, I did like that part. It wasn't just, and we also got point of view from both the heroine and the hero, which kind of developed both those characters more, which I always really like when they develop more characters. So yeah, I really don't have much more to say about this. I did like it. I like the magical elements. Yeah, it's pretty clean. There's really nothing wrong with it at all. So yeah, I'm more excited for the second book. I've heard more like more positive things about the not that I have heard negative things about this. It's just more enthusiasm for the second book than the first one. So I'm and that was the one that I heard about first, so I'm very excited. These are like standalones, so I think you can read these out of order and you won't be lost. There do have characters that like cross over and stuff like that, because 2 characters that appear in the first book, Alaric's brother and one of Lena's friends, they're the main characters in the second book. So it's one of those types of series. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I will be continuing the series. And my last 4-star book is actually a manga, and that is Honey So Sweet Volume 1. This is really cute. This was recommended on my friend Laura's channel, her manga channel. She's talked about this one quite a bit, and my library had it. It's basically just a contemporary kind of slice of life story slash romance where we follow this girl. She gets asked by this guy here out, like literally they haven't talked much, and literally he just asks her out of the blue, you know, would you date me with marriage in mind? And she's just kind of like, what? So yeah, and it's just like their friendship and growing relationship from what I can tell. I'm reading the second volume right now. It's like an 8-volume series, and it's really cute so far. It's just kind of like one of those light, romantic kind of like, not really a comedy, but yeah, just slice of life stories, and it's really cute so far, really sweet, and I'm interested to see where this story is going. Yeah, I'm really enjoying the second one so far, so yes, very interested to see where this is going. Okay, so now I have my 5 stars, so I'm just going to show you the ones on the iPad first, because that's going to be easier. One of them is the spring edition of the Clean Fiction magazine. I don't currently have a physical copy. I read this on ebook, which is fine. It works good, but I would highly recommend more the physical copy. And this is basically a book type magazine that they do the Clean Fiction. They review clean books from like a range from like fantasy, romance, mystery, sci-fi, all the manga, all the things, and they review them and put like content stuff and just whether it's clean or not on in reviews in this magazine. And they do other things. There's like games in there, there's contests, there's some short stories, some articles. It has all just a myriad of things, and I've really, really enjoyed it. I own the first one, I own the winter one, and I do own the spring one, obviously, in ebook. It's really good, really informative, and I found way more books that I don't need to add to my TBR, but I already have. So yes, I would recommend checking that one out. It's really good. They work really hard to put it together, and yeah, I really enjoy it. So, and it's a good way to find books with that are clean, that maybe like have, you know, they're a little more up there for like adults than necessarily like middle grade, young adult type. So yeah, if you're like an older reader, you're like, I want something clean, but I don't, you know, like maybe I want to read more like almost adult books or older YA, but you're like, but I want it clean. This is a good resource to look into if you want to find those. So yes, 5 stars. Totally, really love it. Really look forward to each issue that comes out. And my other one is, did I only read this ebook? I'm pretty sure this is my only ebook for the month so far, and that is Elf Prince by Grayce. Sorry, the cover is a little dark. This is a novella. It is it's part of her Elven Alliance series. I did talk about her, the first book in that series, Fierce Heart, in my last recent reads video. I'll link it down below in case you missed it. This Elf Prince, this novella used to be available from the author's, like when you signed up for the author's newsletter, you would get it free. As part of that, it is no longer available as that because she has expanded it into a full novel. Literally, it is the main hero, Farendel's point of view of the Fierce Heart plot, but it's totally from his point of view, and she's expanded that into a novel, so now it is no longer free as a novella. But I had already downloaded it because I had signed up to her newsletter previously, so I went ahead and read it because I wanted more of these characters, and I don't currently own the Elf Prince novel, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. And it's so interesting seeing more of Farendel's perspective, because you don't get it in Fierce Heart. It's basically just Essie's perspective, our heroine, and just seeing certain things through it only went through like the first 8 chapters, so it's like you don't see much, but it's like literally just seeing things, seeing Essie through his eyes and just everything that's going on. It's like, wow, you get a different perspective on the whole story. And I actually really like it when books do, like either in separate scenes or short stories or even novels, when they show another character's point of view of the whole novel, because it often gives you a different perspective to what's going on and deepens your view of characters and stuff. I really like it when authors do that, and I'm really thrilled that she expanded this into a novel, because literally I need more. Because I like being in Farindel's head and just seeing how he processes things and why he is the way he is, and just, yes, so good. Yeah, I'm really excited to eventually get my hands on the novel of this one because, yeah, I really enjoyed it. And, okay, so that's it for those, and I'm also just gonna mention this one because it is also a 5-star read, and that is Yona the Dawn, volume 35. This is my favorite manga series ever. This is like one of the first, this is probably like the second series I ever read. It's a fantasy. A lot has been going on. Obviously, we're in volume 35, so we're way far in the series now. The basic premise for the very beginning, though, is Princess Yona is our main character, and she lives kind of a sheltered life in the castle until one day when the man she loves, Suwon, murders her father when she sees it. And wow. And then she and her bodyguard Hawk, okay, that came out weird. They have to flee the castle, and it's just her journey ever since. And wow, we have come a long way in this series, and I obviously can't say much because it's volume 35, and that was all that I just told you was way back, like volume 1. So yeah, a lot has happened. The gang is now just slowly getting back together. They've been separated for a while, and it's just all the feels, all the emotions, and I really have no idea. We're gearing up to, like, there's this neighboring country, South Kai, I think is what we're working with right now, or it's all of Kai. I'm not fully sure. I think it's pretty much just South Kai, but whatever. They're threatening the kingdom of Koka, which is Yona's kingdom, and now they're threatening war, because the basic premise is they have tried to frame Yona for killing one of their delegation members when they were actually the ones who did it. So they're trying to start a war. So this is basically the, probably from, I want to say volume, probably actually starting in this one, volume 35, they are gearing up for this big battle with South Kai. So yeah. And I don't know, we've had battles before throughout the series with different countries that are surrounding Koka, but this is the first one where it feels like this is more deliberate. It's more planned and plotted by the enemy's side. And yeah, it's definitely intriguing. I'm always intrigued to see where this goes. And yeah, and there's some things in Suwon going on, and it's just, wow, you're never sure with this mangaka and this manga series where it's gonna go. It's like you can guess, and it's like, oh, you might be right in certain areas, but then she'll like throw it in a loop, and it's like, I did not see that coming. And yeah, it's really good, super great. The art is amazing. I'd show you something, but I'm pretty sure all of this is spoilery. So just admire the cover because her art is beautiful. But yeah. I'm very excited to continue on with this. Currently, I think in English we have up to volume 36 that's out. Because for some reason, volume 37 is not releasing until October, which is just a crying shame. Because I look forward to every single one that comes out, and it's going to be delayed. And I'm bummed. Okay, I just have one more book, and then I think I may try to, like, do these videos more recently. Especially if I keep getting books. Anyways, whatever, that was weird. The last book is actually a huge surprise. I did not expect to like this book that much, and that is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. This is the first book in the Six of Crows duology, obviously, and it's a dark fantasy, and I loved it. I gave this book 5 stars. I read her, if you, also in the same video where I read Fierce Heart, I read Shadow and Bone for the first time, which is the first book in her Shadow and Bone trilogy, which is set in the same world as Six of Crows. They're all set in the what is known as the Grishaverse in these books. Not in the books, but in the, like, fan world and stuff like it says here. Actually, it doesn't say there. Some of these copies say in a Grishaverse novel. This one does not. But anyways, basically you're following this group of 6 criminals who have been tasked with planning the impossible heist to get into this prison and get someone out. Literally no one has ever gotten into this prison or out alive, and they are tasked to do it, but the main catch is most of them don't like each other, and they may just kill each other before they get that far. Yeah, it's literally, it's a dark fantasy. This one is much darker than Shadow and Bone. I was surprised by that when I first started reading this. I think I did say in my Shadow and Bone review that one is pretty dark. It's a dark fantasy, therefore, like, the settings are usually more grim. The characters often have more sketchy morals. They're morally gray. They're anti-heroes. They're not the good guys necessarily, but they're not the bad guys either. They're kind of in the middle. They're the middle guys. I don't think that's a thing, but whatever. They kind of are. And all these characters definitely fall into that. Yeah, it is much more gritty. Characters' backstories are much more harsh. Like, several have been captured, and one was, like, on a slave ship. She was headed to this prison that they're now trying to break into, but she never got there. And then there's, like, one character was kidnapped as a girl and sent to basically a brothel to be a prostitute, and then, which there aren't details about that. So if you're worried about that, there are no details on that, her time there. It's just a known fact she was. One guy is basically a criminal mastermind who has a really tragic backstory. Poor Kaz. And they're all just not necessarily good people, but the way these characters interact with each other is so fun. Their banter and their humor, their kind of dark humor is just funny. I don't know why. Maybe there's something wrong with me, but I really enjoyed this book. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it. The heist even made sense, at least in my opinion. I'm not really much of a heist reader, but this one definitely made sense to me, and it was so much fun, and I really need to know what happens in the next book because, my goodness, the way it ended. Goodness. I would rate this book like a PG-13. I also have a review for this one on Goodreads with all the content in it. There's quite a bit of violence. Some of it is pretty gruesome too. Not really gruesome, but at one point, the one scene that really bothered me was Kaz is trying to get a guy to talk, so she pulls his eye out. He literally rips his eye out of his head. It's not excessively detailed, but it is enough that it made me cringe. And there's just, yeah, that's the worst one, in my opinion. That was the worst one. Most of the time it's just violence. They're fighting each other, they're beating up on each other, shooting at each other, they're stabbing, they're threatening to kill each other. These guys are not exactly great. So, yes. And it is definitely the surroundings of them and the situations they're in. It's very much grimmer and darker, but not to the point where it's bleak, because I don't know, it was dark, and there were moments of light when characters were realizing things about each other and stuff, and I don't know, it just shone really beautifully in my opinion, and I really liked those bits of light, and yeah, I just really ended up enjoying this book a lot, and I was surprised by that. I would recommend this if you can handle all the content and stuff. Like I said, check out my review if you want to see more. There was one F word. It did fit the character who was using it, but it is in there. There's some other mild to more harder profanity in there, and just a lot of violence. And yeah, so just bear all that in mind if you want to read this book. But I would recommend it if you can handle the PG-13 level content and kind of the darkness of it all. And if you don't mind your characters being a little bit morally gray. But yeah, those are pretty much a lot of the books I've read. Let's see if I can hold them up. I haven't done that in a while. Okay. Here are a bunch of the books I've read or haven't read. Pretty much all in June. So these are all June books. Yeah. Let me know down below in the comments what books you guys have been reading, or if any of these that I've mentioned have sounded interesting. Yeah, and hopefully my next video will be way shorter than this one. So yeah. I guess I'll see you guys next time, and thanks so much for watching. Bye!